Okay, how's everybody doing today? December 21st, it's 2024. I'm down here in Carlsbad. I'm in the same place I usually am, but the only difference is today I'm making a daylight video instead of a nighttime video. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is because yesterday I didn't make a video, so I got to make two videos today. So I'm down here in the same street that you always see the videos, but it's just daylight. And it's kind of interesting because the shops that I see right now, I don't even know they exist at night. I had no idea there was a shoe store behind me. But yeah, these are the stores, what they look like during the day. And of course, more people down here during the day. So I want to talk about Bitcoin being today's real estate. So I grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s back in Nebraska. And I went through those times where real estate was the asset to own. I mean, everybody wanted to own real estate, farmland. If you were a tenant farmer, you were kind of poverty, you're just barely making your bills. You're giving everything over to the landlord, and the landlord was able to, you couldn't make changes on the property without the landlord's permission. You felt very confined by the landlord. So you wanted to own your own property if you were a tenant farmer. And I remember this very well as a kid, is everybody would say this thing that, hey, they're not making any more farmland. They've made all they're going to make, and we have no more farmland. So everybody thought farmland was a finite asset. There was never going to be any more of it made. It was a fixed amount, and that was the end of the story. And everybody just bought it like crazy, ran it up to the early 80s. And then in the early 80s, they had a farm crash, and a lot of people lost their property because the farmland went down in value. But for the most part, if you could hang on through those flash crashes where the property prices went down, and you could hang on and kind of make your payments, your land payments, and you did it for a number of years, you're gonna pretty well off. You're gonna be more well off than people that didn't own land. So the land stayed ahead of most of the inflation, not all of it, but a lot of it, and it covered up a lot of problems. So when I talk about farming, I always talk about the overhead that kills you when you're a farmer. But if you can maintain a farming operation, pay the bills, and then buy a piece of property and hang on to the property, in 10 or 20 years, you'll be well off because the property will appreciate enough to where all the losses that you took in the farming side of it, the operation side of it, get kind of wiped out by the long-term capital gain on the farmland. So that's the story. Farmland's always been a good investment. And the same thing is true of houses. So when you rent a house, there's no tax benefit. There's no benefit to you whatsoever. It's just money. It's an expense, and the money it doesn't have any residual value. It just goes away. It goes to the landlord. You get nothing out of it. So if you buy the home, you don't have to pay the rent, make a land payment. And the thing about it is, if you're just making a payment on the house, you don't have to pay the rent, and any equity that gets accumulated in the house belongs to you. And now it's been a great way of going. I mean, if you lived here in Southern California the last 20 years and bought a home, you saw some amazing appreciations. In fact, I always say, everybody says, well, it's so expensive to live in California. Well, it really isn't if you own your own home, because whatever it costs you in living out here gets offset by the way the houses appreciate. And they appreciate a lot more here than they do anyplace else. I mean, if you own a house in Nebraska or western Nebraska, where I'm from, you rarely saw big appreciations. Out here, you saw massive appreciations. I mean, houses would go from 300 to a million pretty quickly, 300,000 to a million pretty quickly. So my thinking today is, I don't even know if, I mean, the thing about real estate, and everybody says, I mean, real estate's been the one good asset to own over the last 100 years, 50 years, whatever. Donald Trump, all these billionaires, they made a lot of money in real estate. But in my thinking today, I mean, I'm in a pretty expensive neighborhood. I'm in Carlsbad, California. Houses out here are, the starting, I would say, maybe a medium price would probably be maybe $1 million. I doubt that very many houses, family homes, would be underneath $1 million. And at that price, does it really pay to own a home at $1 million? Because first of all, it's going to be hard. First of all, I don't know how much more they're going to appreciate over the short term. And secondly, I don't know if anybody's going to be able to afford them once they start getting to $2 or $3 million. Not that I think they're too high, because I don't think they're too high. I think they're probably where they should be, considering all the inflation that we've had. My problem is who can afford to buy them out, because with the inflation the way it is, and the prices at where they're at, the wages and how to make a living hasn't kept up with the price of the houses. So what is somebody going to do to start buying $2-3 million houses here in Southern California? I mean, they're not going to be working at a job. There's no jobs that pay that kind of money. So who's going to end up buying these houses? I don't know. So if no one buys the house anymore, you'll have to go to a bank and throw your income out on the bank and ask them for loans. They're going to give you loans. If you're making maybe $150,000, $200,000 a year, they're not going to give you a loan on a $3 million home. You're not making enough money. Actually, nobody makes enough money to own a home out here. So how does the appreciation continue to appreciate when the way people make their money is never going to be enough to buy one of these homes? So will they continue to appreciate even though no one can afford them? Or will the price stay stagnant? I kind of have a feeling maybe the price will stay stagnant for a few years, or maybe for a while. And that's where my thinking is, hey, maybe Bitcoin is the new real estate. Bitcoin went from $30,000 to over $100,000 very quickly, almost a little over a year. In fact, I think a little bit less than a year, maybe a little over a year, I think. So I don't think any homes out here went from did a triple in that amount of time. I watch the real estate market out here pretty closely. I don't think any homes in Southern California did a triple. I mean, maybe some isolated situation that was very unique, but an overall market, to overall look at the whole entire market, nobody did from a 300,000 to a million in the last year or so. Nobody. I don't think any house went from 300,000 to a million in the last year, but Bitcoin did. Bitcoin went from 300,000 to a million. If you'd own, Bitcoin at 300,000, you'd be worth well over $1 million today. So that's, I think, today's real estate. Bitcoin is today's real estate. I know Michael Saylor talks about this quite a bit. Got to get out here. Got a little party going on here. So they talk about this quite a bit. But I think today's real estate is Bitcoin. If you want to own real estate, don't buy real estate. Buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to be today's real estate. And I first heard this back in 2020. And I was in 2020 where I was trying to figure out what I was going to do because they had everything closed down. And I remember watching this guy, and I've been mentioning this guy quite a few times. His name's Da Vinci. And I kind of casually watched his YouTube channel. Kind of interesting, but he didn't do anything too great, but just kind of talked about Bitcoin. Well, he, in 2020, and he had this German guy that he was doing videos with at the time, he was talking about selling his house and buying Bitcoin. And of course, I was going to try to buy a little Bitcoin about that time too, because I thought maybe it would do well during the pandemic, and I was right, it did. So this guy was going to sell his house and buy Bitcoin. And that to me was like a bridge too far. I mean, I like Bitcoin, but I don't like it that well. I don't like it well enough to live on the street or end up being a renter. I'm not going to sell anything to buy Bitcoin. Whatever money I can accumulate outside of that, I'll do it, but not to sell to buy Bitcoin. But I thought about that, and it really kind of bothered me. The guy was going to do that because I thought that was a huge gamble. And then I thought I'd never do that. We'd never do that. That's just too crazy to sell real estate out, because everybody needs a place to live. I'm not going to sell real estate to buy Bitcoin, but it just didn't seem like it was a good idea. But it come to turn out that would have been a great idea, because Bitcoin went from 5,000 to 60,000. So yeah, I don't think any homes did that well, from 5,000 to 60,000. The price of Bitcoin went 5,000. So no, that's a pretty good amount of appreciation. I don't think any homes were doing that well, especially during 2020. In fact, if anything, they were going down. So this is the new real estate, is Bitcoin. And it gives people an opportunity. I talked to a young man last night who was at a workout place I go to, and he was talking about he and his wife are trying to buy a home, and they just can't afford one. And he's a dentist, just got out of dental school, and he's got student loans to pay, $500,000 for student loans, and then he's also got to try to get a home. And he's got a profession, he's a dentist. I think he was in the military, so they paid some of his dental expenses. But yeah, he's not going to be able to buy a home out here, and he said so. He goes, I can't buy a home, I don't make enough money. And maybe you take somebody like that, and he puts $100,000, $200,000 into Bitcoin. He's got a better chance of buying a home in the next few years than if he just tries to buy a home today and finances it and pays all the interest and does everything like that. He'll have a chance to get in if he just puts a little money in Bitcoin and hangs on. than if he tries to leverage himself and do it without doing anything else. I don't think he'll be able to afford it. He may be able to swing something, but it's going to be a really cheap condo or something that's not really a home, more something that's going to be just shared unit with somebody else. He might be able to get into something like that. But if he wants to get into a home, he's going to have to do something like buy Bitcoin, hang on for a few years, watch Bitcoin go up. I think Bitcoin could be $500,000 very quickly. And if that's the case, he's got a 5x. Now you're getting to the point where now you can start to, you put 100,000, you got 500,000, you got $500,000. That's going to be somewhat of a down payment for a home. I think he'll have a better chance getting a home if he does that than if he just tries to wait for the market, the real estate market, to come down enough to where he can afford it. So I see Bitcoin being today's real estate. So all the benefits people reaped in the past of owning real estate and watching that property appreciate, I think today that the play today is to own Bitcoin, and then to when your Bitcoin goes up to enough to buy what you want to buy, then go ahead. So our lady's flipping me off. That's funny. Oh, nice lady. You're very attractive. These people. Tell you, when you come down here, you get all kinds of weirdos. And I try to talk to people, but not when people are weirdos and they're flipping you off for no reason. I mean, as if she probably even knows what that means. I wonder who she is. I should go over and talk to her. I'm not around you. I'm way over here. What are you doing over my street? I didn't invite you into my camera. Especially your rudeness into my camera. Learn to get some manners. Yeah, fun people to live around. Thank you very much.